Nick from Beyond the Specs. Today we're looking at the classic, the controversial, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. Keep watching to see how it fares on this episode of the Small Cinema Camera series. Blackmagic Pocket Cinema cameras have been on the market for nearly 10 years. When Blackmagic designed the original Pocket Cinema camera, it was meant to go back to a different era of filmmaking. Before the time of little digital cameras and DV tapes, there was a point when people would actually want to film things and things like a full lens. And Blackmagic designed the original Pocket Cinema camera with that idea of portability and craftsmanship. It had a full metal body, a gorgeous Super 16 size sensor, pair that with a Micro Four Thirds mount that gave you a collection of lenses with zero brand loyalty. It was genius. So naturally, professionals took notice, and Blackmagic designed the next generation of Pocket Cinema cameras for more professional workflow, with some concessions. We're going to explore those concessions and those core features that made it great. Is it worth the hype? Are there any annoying drawbacks? We're going to find that out and much more. Quick heads up to the new viewers. On this show, we go beyond the specs. So if you're looking for anything like codecs, I/O specs, or anything that warrants a chart, you need to go somewhere else. And by somewhere else, we mean please pause the video whenever a chart comes up. Please don't leave us. All right, let's address the elephant in the room. This body feels super cheap. Now, Blackmagic has called this a lightweight carbon fiber polycarbonate material. A lightweight carbon fiber polycarbonate composites, which for those of us without a chemistry degree really just means it feels like a strong plastic-like material that feels just like cheap plastic. We were super disappointed to find out that it didn't have a full metal body like the original, but it ended up being a very practical solution for a lot of problems that filmmakers face. Blackmagic ended up shedding that Super 16 size sensor for a Micro Four Thirds sensor in the 4K. And that bumped the resolution up to 2.5K to 4K. Was it worth it? We sure think so. Ergonomics on this is a little bit weird. It's a really large, nice touchscreen in the back that makes navigating menus a breeze. It's huge and has amazing color science for a camera monitor. It just doesn't articulate. There are also a lot of physical buttons that you can use to change menu items and custom map different functions. Really, the choice is yours. This wide body frame is a little bit of an issue, especially when you're trying to rack focus or change your zoom. Unless your first AC moonlights as a bomb diffuser, you're gonna have pretty shaky footage if you're not careful. It's gonna look like it was filmed by a chihuahua. Now this becomes 10 times more of an issue to dare try and put this on a gimbal. What are your recording options on this thing? You get two, ProRes or Blackmagic RAW. And for those filmmakers who haven't used RAW before, it's a significant step up because it leaves your footage uncompressed. Getting information back in the highlights and the shadows is significantly easier because the camera takes the image and turns it more into a film strip rather than a computer. We love Blackmagic's proprietary RAW. It gives us a ton of play in post and just a lot of latitude. I know what you're thinking.
Nick, I can't use Blackmagic RAW. I edit in Adobe Premiere. It will take forever to transcode.
And I say to you, worry not. When you buy this camera, Blackmagic throws in DaVinci Resolve Studio for free. And I know what you're thinking again.
Nick, no professional uses DaVinci Resolve Studio. It's not a real editor.
And I say to you, that's a pretty ballsy thing to say for someone watching a video edited in Resolve Studio right now. Speaking of editing, what's it like to edit in this thing? Kevin?
Hey guys, it's Kevin, a post-production specialist here at Beyond the Specs. Today, we're going to be talking about what it's like to edit footage from the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera 4K. I'll save you the suspense. It's pretty awesome. Before Blackmagic RAW came out, these cameras used Cinema DNG. We talked about this codec a bit in our Panasonic S1H video, but for the purposes here, all you have to know is that it's super bulky and can be inconvenient to work with. What's special about this codec is the way that the software interprets it. It balances a mix between CPU and GPU when interpreting the footage. Long story short, it's fast and it's smooth. It also keeps the file sizes really small. When I first started working with the codec, I couldn't believe how well the footage looked for how tiny the file sizes were. It's easily the most efficient codec I've ever worked with. And as a professional colorist, this RAW is also super fun to work with. The dynamic range is incredible and it really creates these milky and rich images. Highlights are a little flat, but all that dynamic range makes creating a contrasty image look really good. Where this codec really shines is in the shadows. If your highlights are, well, not so great, You can bring down the exposure and make really usable image relying on the shadows to fill in the blanks. Noise is also a non-issue. The native noise profile is already super low, but even if you practically destroy your image, you'll be shocked at Resolve's amazing noise reduction features. Did we mention it's free with your camera?
So, what's it like to actually shoot on this? Besides the ergonomic issues I mentioned before, the shooting experience is pretty dope. Boots up in seconds and is ready to go. If you use an external SSD like we do, there is a 1 in 5 chance it won't mount correctly the first time, and that little procedure just means you unplug and plug it back in. The plasticky body is actually pretty nice because it makes it lightweight. The problems with the screen really become apparent whenever you try to do low angle shots or high angle shots. There's no effective way to see what you're actually capturing. With a bit of finagling, you can get high quality audio and sync timecode into this thing, but because of a lack of mounting holes, you're probably going to want to buy a cage. Speaking of peripherals, Blackmagic is absolutely killing the peripheral game. Peripherals cost pennies on the dollar compared to other brands like Red or Ari. One thing you might want to get in terms of peripheral is a battery kit. The battery life is absolutely trash. Blackmagic says they're rated for 45 minutes, but if you are shooting in studio, you can also go 12-volt DC in through a wall outlet, and they provide the plug for that. You're probably wondering why we are going with the 4K instead of the 6K. First off is the price. There's a nearly $1,200 difference between the 4K and the 6K. $1,200 is a lot to pay when you're first starting out, and if you're a veteran, that's nearly a new piece of equipment. The second reason we really like the 4K is because it plays nicely with all the gear you already own. Micro Four Thirds mount is really nice. It gives you a ton of different options to choose from, and you're not really zeroed into one brand like you would be for an S35 sensor. While we may review the 6K in the future, we're pretty happy with the 4K. All right, verdict time. So, is this camera good for beginners, for veterans, anybody, nobody, and us? And well, it really depends on what you're going for. If you're just starting out, this is the ultimate tool. You have almost 14 stops of dynamic range, you have Blackmagic Raw, and a whole editing suite that gives you a whole bunch of different options to take that amateur look and make it professional. If you've never used Blackmagic systems, their customer service and manuals are pretty great. If Adobe's a Honda, Blackmagic is a Rolls Royce. Honestly, we've been using it for almost a year now, and it's been a reliable source that captures amazing content. As our A cam, we have a Red Ranger Helium, and our B cam is our Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. If you're in between and a heavy gimbal user, we recommend you stay away from this camera. Maybe go to something like a S1H. If you have a lot of EF mount lenses, maybe spring for the 6K. But if you're looking for something that's pretty robust, something that gives you a lot of options and looks, the Micro Four Thirds mount and the 4K is pretty nice. What about us? As you can tell, we absolutely love this camera. The 4K is pretty reliable and has great detail and everything we screened it on. Blackmagic has really hit it out the park with this one. It's a great option for first-time filmmakers, another tool if there's money burning a hole in your pocket. Alright guys, thanks for watching this episode of the Small Cinema Camera series. Like and subscribe to keep seeing us go beyond the specs.